Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, As-salatu was-salamu alayka ya Sayyidi Rasulullah, Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala Sayyidina wa Mawlana Muhammadin khairil bariyah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi fi kulli lamhatin wa nafasin adra ma wasi'ahu ilm Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. So, before I begin anything, I want people to understand that this presentation, this class was made so that it can lay down the foundations of our beliefs, why we believe in what we believe in, and why we do what we do. Inshallah, this will be a means for us to become closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and to know Allah as He should be known and His religion as it should be known. It'll also be a means for us to defend ourselves from anything unorthodox, right? In our times today, there's quite a lot of unorthodox beliefs that are being thrown around, superstitions, false beliefs, these things of the sort. So, inshallah, with this presentation, with the Aqida Mastery course, it'll be a means to dispel anything false, any false notions that one may have, and it'll correct anything that needs to be corrected. Imam al-Haddad, rahimahullah, states that each believer, each mu'min, each Muslim must protect his faith by learning the Aqidah of the Imams that are incontestably worthy of respect and are well grounded in knowledge in his book of assistance, in Imam al-Haddad's book of assistance. And what I have gathered here in this presentation is essentially a collection of multiple books of aqaid and some books of fiqh as well, in terms of talking about certain subjects and whatnot. So to begin with, we make our intentions for seeking knowledge. نويت التعلم والتعليم والتذكر والتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم والدعاء إلى الهدى والدلالة على الخير وابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى. Essentially, we intend to seek knowledge, we intend to act upon our knowledge, we intend to teach and impart our knowledge, and we intend to do so by sticking towards the book of Allah and the sunnah of His beloved sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we intend to do all of these things in order to attain His pleasure. So to begin with, we talk about what our intentions were, which we already stated before, that we're learning the deen for His sake of Allah in order to gain His pleasure and His divine mercy, as well as His divine protection. Now we go into the study of Aqidah. So we begin with what Aqidah is and its importance, right? So Aqidah is the study of theology and our deen, meaning what we believe in and why we believe in it. It's from the core of our deen, and without it we wouldn't be Muslim, right? And the core being, the shahada, the first pillar of Islam. The first pillar of our deen is testifying our faith, and our faith can't be testified if we don't have the belief in our heart in the first place, if we don't know the belief in the first place, right? Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Right, that we acknowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one without any form of partners, and that He's the only one worthy of worship, and that His final prophet is Nabi Pak sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The main reason why we have the shahada, the testification, is that we have to testify our faith, because our tongue only affirms what we believe in our heart, what we hold in our heart. Now, by studying Aqeedah, we are able to know what it is we believe in and why we believe in it, with rational evidences and scriptural evidences. allowing us to protect ourselves and others from extremism, and allowing dialogue with those outside the religion as well as those who are perhaps confused within the religion. Now that we've established Aqida, we must establish what true knowledge is. And in the first place, I've already established that, okay, how will this help us, right? I've said that this will help us by us knowing the essentials of the deen. So, to begin with, we establish what true knowledge is and what ilm al-kalam is, right? Knowledge is an attribute which something but brought to the mind is made apparent to the possessor. And ilm al-kalam is the study of Aqida. Now, there may be some of you that may be confused, that's fine. We'll go into it more in depth later. So hold off your questions for now. When speaking of knowledge, know that there's two types of knowledge. There's qadim and hadith, right? There's uncreated knowledge, which is qadim, and then there's hadith, which is created knowledge. And know that there is no resemblance between each other at all. Right? For something, what we say is that for something to resemble one another, they must be similar in every respect, not just in name, right? So qadim is only the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. While hadith, the created knowledge, is only the attribute of creation, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who created this knowledge, right? And Allah's knowledge is eternal, ours is not eternal, ours is very, very limited. And there's two types of hadith, there are two types of created knowledge. There's daruri and iktisabi, right? The daruri is obvious and iktisabi is acquired knowledge. Obvious knowledge, daruri knowledge, means that knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts in a creation without their choice, such as pain, hunger, existence, and many more, right? Example can be given is that I obviously know that when I'm feeling a certain type of way, like I obviously know that I'm feeling hungry, or that I'm feeling cold or hot, or I obviously know that I exist. These are things that are obvious, right? And then there's acquired knowledge, iktisabi knowledge, which is which Allah creates with the choice of the creation, such as if we're learning mathematics or any other thing that we are learning that requires a process. Now, the question is, okay, how can this be acquired? How can iktisabi knowledge be acquired? And iktisabi knowledge, acquired knowledge, is acquired by three means. It's acquired by sound senses, it's acquired by true narration, and it's acquired by reasoning. And for the senses, it involves sight, smell, touch, taste, hearing, the five senses, without there being any deficiency in any of it. So basically, somebody that has all five of their senses perfected, they don't have like any significant deficiencies in it, like someone who's not blind, someone who's not deaf, someone who can't smell, someone who can't touch, someone who can't taste. Somebody without any deficiencies in these things, this is a means of acquiring knowledge. One of the means. A second mean is true narration. And for true narration, this refers to two types. One is that a narration that is so widespread that it is impossible for everyone to come together on a lie, such as mutawatir, right? This is what we call that it's mass transmitted, mutawatir knowledge. And such knowledge includes information regarding past entities. For example, the Roman Empire, right? We know that it exists how? Right? Through mutawatir knowledge, because this is something that almost everybody in the world has acknowledged, has seen in the past, and has relayed that information onto us, that it's gotten to a point where if everybody came together, they couldn't agree on a lie. They couldn't say that, oh, it didn't exist at a certain point. They have to acknowledge that, no, the Roman Empire did certainly exist. And a smaller version of this is our family, right? Like our parents. We wouldn't know who our family is or isn't unless we're told by somebody that, hey, this person is your mother, this person is your father, this person is this person is that. The second type refers to the mu'jizas, the miracles of the prophets, alayhi salam. as it shows their truthfulness. And we'll discuss this later. And then the third means is reasoning. And reasoning involves two types. We have self-evident reasoning and inferential reasoning. Now, all of these sources, they give us the capacity to know who our Lord is and what the truth is. Without any of these, knowledge would never be able to reach us, right? And we'd be stuck in falsehood. Now, we move forward to the composition of creation, and we define that creation is made of two things: substances and accidents. And a substance is that which occupies space, and an accident refers to the qualities of that which occupies space, such as the color of it, the shape of it, the smell, the scent, and anything else that's referred to as the qualities of an object. Now, the picture here shows a square and a cube, and the reason behind this is what we define a substance to be, bare minimum, is two-dimensional, whereas mathematicians say that it must be three-dimensional. And a substance can be made of anything so long as it occupies space in at least two dimensions, right? And to define an accident, right? An accident, we already said, is a quality, but it also must be noted that accidents don't last for more than a moment, right? Accidents last only for a moment and then it ceases to exist, right? An example is given about the color of black within my hair, right? So the color of black within my hair, it's not the same black as it was a second ago. And it won't be the same black as it will be in the next second, right? So on and so forth. And we'll talk about this more in detail later as well, about accidents. But this is the general idea of it. And in regards to substances, there's two types of substances. There's the indivisible particle, hence the picture of a quark, right? A single indivisible particle, right? And a compound, such as molecules and atoms, right? The atoms are made of protons, neutrons, electrons, those sorts of things. We call them compound substances. Some people, they deny that there is an invisible particle, and we say that this is ridiculous because it's obvious to anybody that has sense that a part of a mountain is not the same as a part of a seed, right? If these parts were equal, then that means taking a part of a mountain is the same as taking a part of a seed. And if you were to keep taking these parts, if there wasn't any indivisible particle, if there wasn't a particle where it stops eventually, then it leads to infinite parts. And we know that this doesn't exist in reality, right? If you were to take a part of a mountain and continue taking parts of that mountain, eventually you wouldn't have the mountain anymore, right? We can't say that the mountain infinitely exists, right? Now, when it's compounded, when an indivisible particle is compounded with another particle, it becomes a body, a jism, such as molecules. And substances, they can cease to exist, and so can accidents. And accidents only exist as a part of the substance. The color black can't exist by itself. It exists with a substance. In conjunction with all of this, it has to be noted that there exists a locus that Allah-us-sunnah has created for these substances and accidents to exist, that being space and time. We know that, anything that's created can't exist outside of space and time. It has to exist within the space that we've defined before, and it has to exist with the time, right? Substances, they only exist within a space, and accidents exist within time as well as the space. Now, we've already answered the objection, but we continue on talking about the determination of objects and who determiner is, right? All of the things that are mentioned before is to note that all of the created things are temporal and physical, whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not a substance, nor is he an accident, as that would mean he is not only changing, but he is also limited in space and time. And this is not possible with him. With all this said, we can see that objects in reality exist, and at one point they didn't exist. Because they existed at one point and didn't exist at another, this means that there is a 50-50 chance of it occurring. It cannot exist by itself, meaning that the object in question, say for example a water bottle, right? At one point it existed, and at another point it did not exist, right? But the water bottle by itself cannot push itself to its existence or its non-existence, which means there has to be something to push it to existence. There has to be something to push that 50-50 boundary to existence or non-existence. When this something pushes an object into existence or non-existence, it's effectively a determiner, and that determiner is one. The Kalam cosmological argument states that everything had a beginning, and anything with a beginning has a cause for it to begin. Therefore, there must be a cause that is beyond time itself, hence being eternal. And this eternal determiner is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one, Al-Wahid. Some people say that, oh, what created Allah? What determined the determiner, basically, is what they're asking. And the response to this is that this is not a question to begin with. As if we were to think about it logically, then the determiner would be 50-50, meaning that you need the determiner to have another determiner. And then if you ask the same question for that, then you keep going until you reach infinite regression, basically. You never reach a conclusion as to who or what the determiner is, because now either you're reaching circular logic or you're leading into infinite regression. There's no determiner, or the indeterminers just infinitely go on. Rather, we say that there is nothing in creation that exists in an infinite capacity in reality. So with this, we establish that there is a determiner for creation, and the determiner is one, singular. And we acknowledge that Allah, the determiner, not only exists, but that He must exist, because the determiner must determine what goes into existence and non-existence. With this, we can continue in regards to our beliefs regarding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The ilahiyat, the beliefs regarding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Before we move on, there's one last thing that needs to be established, and that's the categories of rational judgment, as seen over here. These involve three types: necessary, impossible, and conceivable. The necessary is what the mind cannot accept the non-existence of, meaning that if the necessary thing didn't exist, it would be absurd. In other words, the existence of Allah, because He, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is the only necessary existence. The impossible, on the other hand, involves what the mind does not accept the existence of, no matter what, meaning what is absurd and logically fallible, such as a square circle. Right? A square circle is just a bunch of mishmash of words. It can't actually exist in reality, and it is impossible for it. Otherwise, you'd have to change the definitions of what a square entails and what a circle entails. And then the conceivable is what the mind can accept the existence or non-existence of. So there's any created thing or anything that can be imagined, like the ocean actually being Fanta soda, or the whole universe being inside the egg, or waterfalls suddenly being made of rubies. More examples can go on, but it should be clear that the conceivable refers to that which is not practically impossible, right? Like, we know that, okay, we can imagine the world can be turned upside down. This is easy to imagine. This is not something that's impossible, right? This is something that's conceivable. Now, after we've established these three things, we go into the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what they must be, right? Beginning with the first six, they are existence, wujud, beginningless eternality, qidam, which basically means that, He has always existed, right? Endlessness, baqa, dissimilarity to creation, freedom from space and time, and oneness, wahdaniyya. These are the first six, the first being the attribute of self-existence, and the other five that follow are the attributes of negating imperfections. Now, seven more follow. They're called sifat al-ma'ani, the attributes of meanings. And they are power, will, knowledge, life, speech, hearing, and sight. And finally, there are seven more, which are the sifat al-ma'nawiyya. These are attributes pertaining to meaning, in that having power, Allah having will, Allah having knowledge, Allah having life, Allah having speech, Allah having sight, and Allah having hearing. And finally, we talk about the attributes that are impossible for Allah to have, such as this: being non-existent, having a beginning, having an end, similarity to creation, not being self-existent, meaning that he has to rely on something, being multiple or being parts, being unable to bring a possibility into existence, being negligent, being ignorant, to be dead, to not be active, basically, to be passive, to be deaf, to be blind, to have a lack of speech. And the rest of the attributes are obvious from what we've mentioned above. Now, to prove these attributes that are indeed his attributes, we look at the first attribute, and we've already established the proof for this by mere logic and the Kalam cosmological argument. The others, such as his hearing, sight, and speech, this can be formed by reason, such as Allah's hearing, sight, and speech are clearly stated in the Quran, Hadith, scholarly consensus, and reasoning. Otherwise, if he was not attributed with them, it would be the opposite, which would be weakness. As for power, will, knowledge, etc., nothing would exist without these. So this is also acknowledged. This does not mean that creating is an obligation upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, however, because there's nothing that's obligatory upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what we discussed about the sifat earlier, it's important to note that they're not the same. Sifat al-ma'ni is not the same as sifat al-ma'nawiyya, meaning that he's not an attribute, nor can you say that his power has will or that his power is knowledgeable. Someone asked me, one of the classmates, they asked me that, does Allah have power? Does Allah see by his power? The answer to this is no, because this would mean he'd be using his attributes like tools. Rather, what we say in regards to this, for the example of knowledge, that he is all-knowing, he has knowledge, and it is eternally described to him. As for power, we say the same thing, that he is all-powerful, that he has power, and that is eternally ascribed to him. Furthermore, there are people that say that Allah is his attributes, that it can be separate from him, or that he has no attributes, meaning they deny the attributes altogether. And what we say for this is that Allah's attributes are neither his essence, meaning his zat, and nor are they separate from his essence. The sifat is not the same as the zat. There are people who say that Allah's attributes, we'll discuss them, right? Now, his zat, it's not a locus, it's not a place where all of his attributes condense, because otherwise this be ascribing Allah as a place, and this is impossible, what we've described before, right? If it were parts, as some people say, then this means that that is a center of parts, meaning that Allah has multiple things inside of him, and this is impossible. If it were separate from him, then it means that the opposite can also be a part of him, and they've shown before that this can't be the case. The Christians of old would say that not only can they be a part of him, but that each part of Allah, Ma'azallah, is Maryam alayhi salam, Isa alayhi salam, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in regards to this, the Isais, the Christians of old, they would say that each attribute of Allah, the power, the will, the hearing, it represents each one of the three persons. Yani Maryam alayhi salam, Isa alayhi salam, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. But the question is, it's like, okay, if you're having three, then why not have more, right? We know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has at the very least 20 attributes that are known to us for his perfection. So why not have 20 people? Why not have more than 20 people? Or why just keep it at one person? You could keep going on and on until you reach the conclusion that, there's a whole bunch of people, all of them are Allah, which we've established that this is ridiculous because he's completely dissimilar to creation. But to comprehend all this, it's basically noted that overall, the attributes of his is not separable from him, as this would indicate change, nor are they in the one eternal essence, the Dhat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As that would mean that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is himself a place of objects and qualities. And this is incorrect. We say that his attributes are eternal and that they are neither his Dhat nor are they other than his Dhat. It is possible for him to have more attributes of perfection and names than what I have said. But what I have said already consists of what we need to know regarding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the first 20 attributes. And we also say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is omnipotent, and we say that he's not omnipresent in the physical sense, because this would mean that he'd be physically everywhere, which we do not say, but by the fact that the manifestations, the signs of his attributes are everywhere. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beyond space and time, but we can see the signs of him and his attributes everywhere. We can see the signs in creation, such as, if someone were to say that, look at this insect, for example, and look at how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created this insect, right? They're acknowledging that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has power, has will, and has knowledge, and anything else. And they also acknowledge that he has the ability to create as well. And moving on, we show the proofs of his attributes using the Quran Sharif. And we talk about what is possible for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what's possible for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is anything that's created. And we've referred to it before, right? Such as a mountain of gold. And we'll iterate this in later as well. But for now, we discussed that these are the ayats of the Quran Sharif that show the proofs of what we're talking about. In different surahs, parts of these surahs, and the translations of these surahs, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all-knowing and the wise. It is He who is alive on His own accord. He has the power to do everything. And only He is Allah, the maker, the creator, the giver of shape to everyone. He is all-hearing, He is all-seeing. And like I said before, this is anything that has to do with, that's possible for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can make a mountain of gold if He so willed. Or He could not do it, because it's possible for Him to do it. It's not an obligation upon Him, right? The possible things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do would either be an obligation upon Him, or it would be impossible for Him. And this can't be. It's impossible. So, we've already said furthermore that, the relation between His attributes and His essence, that His attributes are neither His essence, nor are they separate from Him. They cannot be separated, as otherwise it would entail parts, and it would entail that He has the possibility of being deficient, as well as being temporary. In this case, it's a temporality. An example of this can be given without comparison to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that a person, us, we can have qualities that can be removed while others remain. This is not the case for the one who necessarily exists, the one who it's wajib for existence, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The attributes can be thought of as eternal qualities of one being. Now, we continue on. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's being is that He is one in every sense. He has no partners in being. He has no partners in attributes, actions, commands, nor in names. And His existence is wajib al-wujud. It's a necessary existence. And His non-existence is impossible. He is qadim, azali, and abadi. Meaning that He has always existed and He is uncreated. And He will continue to exist. And He alone is worthy of being worshipped. Independent from creation. And all of creation is dependent on Him. And we've already discussed before that objects have a cause. They can't exist on their own, like the water bottle example. Therefore, that there has to be a determiner that is necessary. Otherwise, there'd be infinite determiners instead of a single determiner. Now we move forward to the ayat of istiwa, right? Ar-Rahmanu ala al-arsh istawa. The Most Gracious establishes authority upon the throne in Surah Taha, ayat number 5. There's many other ayats that are similar to this. We mentioned earlier that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot be within time and space, meaning that Allah is not a body, nor is He in any direction. Right? Ar-Rahmanu ala al-arsh istawa. The ayat of istawa is often translated incorrectly, saying that he, Mazallah, God forbid, sits on the throne. We know in the Quran that there is nothing except praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his kalam, in his speech, in his word. And sitting isn't a point of praise because anybody can do this, right? And furthermore, this shows that Allah is being overwhelmed by the arsh, which is also absurd. The word istiwa is a word that contains multiple meanings. So it must be given appropriate meaning in regards to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hence why it must be translated to authority. An example in terms of creation with the word istawa can be given like this. Bishr assumed control. Bishr did istawa of Iraq. He obviously can't sit on Iraq. So the only logical conclusion is that he assumed control of Iraq. Next, we talk about Allah's being and His divine attributes. We say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's not more than one. And anybody who says so, they've essentially denied Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala were more than one, such in a hypothetical situation, we say that there's two determiners. Right? If the first determiner willed for, say for example, he wanted life to happen in an object, and the other willed for death to happen in an object, either both would happen, neither would happen, or only one would happen. Now both can't happen because this entails that opposites can occur in the same time, same space, which is not possible. We don't say that at all. We don't say that the opposites of something can't exist at the same time in the same place. If neither happened, this would show that both of them are powerless. And if one would happen, then this shows that the other one, let's say for example, if the one that wanted life in an object, if his request was fulfilled, and the other's request who wanted to put death in an object wasn't fulfilled, that shows that the one who wanted death is being overpowered. And that which is being overpowered cannot be divine, which means that there's only one true being that has true power, true will, and true authority, right? And we've already explained that there can't be more than one determiners, right? Because this would entail infinite determination. Neither is Allah the father or son or husband or brother of anybody. And those that say this is not a Muslim. They are an unbeliever, they are a kafir. And if they even consider this a possibility, then these people are misguided. We say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-hayy, the self-existing, and that the life of everything is in His control. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is qadir, He has divine power over everything that is possible, over mumkin. There is nothing possible that is out of His power. And His power is free from anything that is muhal, which is absolutely impossible. And it cannot be connected to His qudrat, as it can never exist. If it were to be regarded as maqdur, meaning within His divine power, then it would become possible to exist. Yet this is absurd due to what we have said before about polytheism. For example, if somebody asks the question, now can Allah create another Allah, right? This, we say, is not within His qudrat. They say that it is impossible to ascribe this to His power, because this essentially says that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can be overwhelmed by creating somebody or something that is like Him, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is being essentially forced to do this, right? To believe that it can happen would be committing shirk. And shirk is to say that anything other than Allah is divine. And we say that unnecessary for possible things to exist, although Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is capable of making it exist, such as a mountain of gold. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is free from deficiency, and it is impossible for there to be any deficiency. He is free from lies, He is free from deceit, distrust, tyranny, ignorance, immodesty, and whatnot. To say that He has power over lying is impossible, as this is in turn rejection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself. Now what is lying? Lying is a created thing that by nature is something that changes, right? To ascribe this to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to say the same thing as saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala changes, which is not possible. We say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is unchanging. Because you can't ascribe change to infinity, nor can you ascribe change to a singular being. It is the weakness of the impossible that makes it not worthy of being associated with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We've discussed this before, previously, where lying is something that changes. And lying is also a form of evil, right? And we say that anything that is changing, anything that is created can't be associated with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because they are weak. And because this is weakness is not ascribed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, such as lying. And lying is an inherent weakness, right? As mentioned prior with its attributes, he does not depend on any physical object as a means, and we say that he absolutely hears and absolutely sees. And to extend this, we know that there are animals and people that are capable of hearing colors or seeing sound. But in regards to the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his hearing and sight encompasses all of these and more beyond the scope of our imagination, right? And this is why Ilm al-Kalam, the study of Aqida, is so important, right? Because without the Ilm al-Kalam, we would not be able to grasp these things with ease. We would fall into misguidance very quickly if we do not have Ilm al-Kalam, right? And the word Quran, when we talk about the next slide, when we talk about the Quran Sharif, the word Quran is referring to two meanings. One being the actual speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the other being the physical book itself, right? As mentioned before, his speech is also eternal, qadim, and uncreated. And anyone who says that the Quran, the speech of Allah, is a creation, has been determined a kafir by the A'imma and the Sahaba. It is free from sound, letters, and form. What we recite with our tongues and which we read on scriptures all indicate to the kalam, the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and our reading, writing, and the voices are all creation. What we hear from the Quran is indicating towards the kalam of Allah. And because our hearing is the ability that is created, and what we have heard is uncreated, right? So whatever we can hear with our own abilities, right? Our hearing in and of itself is a created ability. Everyone acknowledges this, right? We also must acknowledge that what we're hearing when we're hearing the Quran Sharif, we hear two things. We hear the voice of that person reciting it, and we hear the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Along with this, we say that what we memorize of the Quran Sharif is uncreated, and our act of memorizing is created. And these are the ayahs regarding our proofs, right? Surah Ikhlas is the biggest example for the Aqida of the Ahl-us-sunnah, of the Muslims. We say, from Surah Ikhlas it says that, say you, O beloved, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that He is Allah, He is one. And your God is one God, yani Allah. There is no God except Him. He has no partner, and He does not associate anybody in His command. Everything is perishable except His being. This is Allah your Lord. No one is worthy of worship except Him, the creator of everything. So worship Him, and He is the guardian over all things. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is independent. These are all the ayahs that were proving our position in these matters. In regards to His knowledge, we do not say that anybody has total knowledge of the unseen, because complete knowledge of the matters of the unseen belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. His knowledge encompasses everything, whether it's possible, impossible, complete, partial, in the sense of what we're limited in knowing. He absolutely knows, possible or totally impossible. Things and objects may change for us, but His knowledge does not change with that. He knows that it's going to change. He knows if it doesn't change. He knows what happens. He knows all the possibilities, essentially. He knows everything currently, of before and after, and always has known. And divine self-knowledge, ilm-i-zati, is His attribute alone. And anybody who claims this for another is a kafir, is an unbeliever. I restate my thing again, that total knowledge of the unseen belongs only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The prophets, the Anbiya alayhi salam, have knowledge of the unseen, but their knowledge is created and incomparable to the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is uncreated. We do not say that the knowledge of the Anbiya is self-created. Rather, we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has gifted them, has bestowed them this knowledge. And we'll talk about this more in the next sections. But for now, we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's the creator of everything, from concepts to real objects and their actions. And Allah is the one who gives us sustenance, and the angels are the means for delivering the sustenance. One more thing to note, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah is beyond the conformities of gender, yet we call Him with a male pronoun because this is how He describes Himself. And these are the ayahs regarding our proofs, right? That He has no offspring, nor is He born from anybody. That He knows whatever is in the heavens and in the earth, and He knows what you hide and what you disclose. And Allah knows what is within the hearts. And He possesses the keys of the unseen. Only He knows them on His own accord, and He knows whatever is in the dryness, meaning the land, and the wetness, meaning the sea, and He knows regarding any leaf that falls. And there is not a grain in the darkness of the earth, nor anything wet, meaning fresh produce, or dry, which is not recorded in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there is no one equal to Him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created this world in a fashion that allows us to see patterns in creation, and that we use means of other created objects to get objects done. In reality, though, this is all according to the will of Allah in every single moment. This is all due to the cause of Allah in every single moment, and the effects are also created and ruled by Allah in every single moment. And the true giver of all of this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yet we also affirm that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has indeed created a system for us, a means for us to attain everything, attain sustenance. And the biggest example of this is the angels. We talked before about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala possesses the keys of the unseen, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He can also bestow these keys to anybody who He desires. Now, the next subject is a bit more complicated, but it's also simple, because we're not going to spend too much time on this, because excessiveness on this topic will lead for destruction. If there are questions on this topic, please save them for after class. And we'll begin by saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has predestined all good and bad and ordained them as they were to happen and as they were to be done. This doesn't mean that we do something because He has written it, but it means that He has written it as we were to do. Meaning, continuing on, that written destiny does not force us to do things. Rather, those things are written because we do those things. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had destined bad for a person, for example, it is because they chose to do bad things, right? Such as, for example, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala writes that a person will do such and such an action by his own choice, not because He is forcing that person to do it. And His knowledge and His predestining did not force people to do anything, right? Now, in regards to destiny, there's three types of destiny. There's mubram hakiki, there's mu'allaq shabi ba mubram, and there's mu'allaq mahaz, right? Now, mubram hakiki, it is the inevitable destiny that cannot be changed. Mu'allaq mahaz, this is pending. This is a situation that angels record as pending, meaning it can be changed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the angels that this situation is able to be changed through the dua or through some type of intercession. And then mu'allaq shabi ba mubram is a situation only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that can be changed by the dua of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's special servants. Now, to discuss these issues at length and thinking too intensely, it can lead to destruction, as the Shaykhain, the first two Khalifas, they were cautioned about this matter and about discussing it at length. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us independence and intelligence, as well as the means to do things, so that we are able to be held accountable for our actions. And to do evil and to attribute it to destiny or the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is incorrect. If good is done, attribute it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if wrong is done, attribute it to yourself. Now, to discuss the first three things, the Mubram Hakiki, Mu'allaq Mahaz, Mu'allaq Shabi Mubram, we'll talk about certain stories, right? So Mubram Hakiki, this is destiny that can't be changed, and sometimes even the chosen people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala try to intercede in this regard, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala diverts their thoughts away from this. An example follows from where the angels descended to give the punishment of Qawm Lut. The Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, he was a contemporary of Sayyidina Lut alayhi salam as well. So Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, he attempted to try and present the case of these folks, of the Qawm Lut, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in regards to them. And Allah says that, O Ibrahim, refrain from this thought. Indeed, your Lord's command has arrived, and a punishment is indeed destined upon them. That which will not be averted. In these ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refutes those people who say that the chosen servants of Allah have no authority in this court. This is a refutation of that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows that not only have they been granted an exalted position to not only be heard, but to also intercede in affairs, such as the next one, right? In this Surah Hud, it mentions that Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, he began to dispute respectfully with regards to the people of Lut alayhi salam, right? It comes in a hadith sharif regarding the Mi'raj that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he heard a loud voice conversing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he asked Sayyidina Jibreel who the loud voice was. Though Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam knew, he asked Jibreel alayhi salam, as a way to honor him. An example can be given that a father asking a child about something that they already knew. Now Jibreel alayhi salam said that that loud voice was Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that, does he speak to his creator in such a high voice? And Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salam responds that his creator knows well of his intense nature. In the next ayat shown here, that it says that indeed it is close that your Lord will give you so much that you will be pleased. When it is referring to the ummah of Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in regards to their positions in the akhirat as well. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says in response to this that if this be the case, then I will not be entirely pleased if even one of my ummati remains in the fire of Jahannam, showing us the blessed and exalted station he has with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now the mention of these things was to note that this is Mubram Hakiki. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds in this ayat about the protest of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, as we mentioned here that, O Ibrahim alayhi salam, refrain from this thought. Now the second type, it refers to Mu'allaq Mubram, a destiny that can be changed through the du'as of the Anbiya and the Awliya. Shaykh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, Ghaus Azam, as he's better known, says that I cause Qazai Mubram to be alleviated. And the third type, Mu'allaq Mahaz, is that which is a pending situation in the books of the angels. It has been mentioned in the Hadith Sharif in Kanzul Ummal, verily dua words of Qazai Mubram. This right here. Verily dua words of Qazai Mubram. And mentioned previously that in the Quran Sharif it says that, O listener, whatever good reaches you, that is from Allah, and whatever evil reaches you, that is from yourselves. And we have sent you, O beloved, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as a messenger towards all people, and Allah is sufficient as a witness to that. Now the next thing we talk about is Mu'allaq Mahaz, right? What we spoke about earlier, the pending situation in the books of the angels. We already discussed this Hadith Sharif right here, and it must be mentioned that those who say that they are powerless to do anything, or that they have complete control and Allah has no control in their lives, this is pure misguidance. There's more details discussing this particular section in other books of Aqaid, but they will not be mentioned here because it's not of significant importance. We acknowledge that destiny exists, both good and bad, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not forced us to do anything. If a good action is done, we attribute it from Allah, and it's called tawfiq. And if a bad action is done, we acknowledge it as a creation of Allah, and we attribute the evil to ourselves or our nafs. For Allah is beyond anything weak and evil. Next, we talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being free from creation and seeing Him and hearing Him. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we say that He is free from space and time, as was one of His attributes that we mentioned earlier, of negating imperfections. And to see Allah in one's worldly life while you're awake, this is only unique to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In the hereafter, though, this is a reality for every Sunni Muslim, for any Muslim who is within the folds of the Ahl-us-sunnah wal Jama'ah. As for seeing it in a dream or spiritually, as for seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a dream or to see Him spiritually, this was given to many of our prophets and to certain awliya. An example is Imam Abu Hanifa. He saw Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala 100 times in his dreams, but this was not with his eyes that he saw. Rather, Sayyidina Imam Abu Hanifa says that he saw Allah with his heart. Now, we have talked about in length regarding the first matter, about Him being free from creation, and we talk about the second matter, which is seeing Him and hearing Him. Allah affirms this vision for us in the Quran, that when we are all in the Akhirah, we will see Him. There is only one person who has seen and heard Allah while still in a physical form, living on the earth, and that is Imam al-Anbiya sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He saw Allah without any modality on the night of Mi'raj. Nobody else can claim that they saw Allah with their physical eyes while awake, but we affirm that it is possible to behold Allah by spirit, such as in dreams. And this is a type of vision that is seen by the heart. And this is also not really explainable because Allah does not manifest Himself in a form or anything. Right? As it's mentioned here, how will we see Allah? This can't be explained or understood, nor will it be possible to be described when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the how and why, it's insignificant because Allah can do as He wants, however He wants. He will be seen without any modality. And this is in regards to the ayat of the sight, that on that day, some faces will be bright looking towards their Lord. And Surah Al-Qiyamah. Now we mention again Allah's being and His divine attributes, right? That Allah is absolutely and divinely supreme. He does as He wills, in whichever manner He wills. None has any control or power over Him, and there is none who can divert or stop Him from doing what He wills. He neither dozes nor sleeps. He is the one who watches over the entire creation. He neither becomes tired or fed up. He is the sustainer of the entire universe. He is more compassionate than one's parents. He is the most compassionate. His mercy gives solace to the broken hearts. All excellence and greatness is for Him alone. He creates the appearance of a child in the mother's womb as He wills. It is He who is the most forgiving and the acceptor of repentance. It is He who reveals the divine wrath. His divine hold is the most powerful, and none can be released without His will. Once He has seized them, if He wills, He can cause something small to become vast and something vast to become small. He exalts whom He wills and lowers whom He wills. He may grant honor to the one who is disgraced and shame to the one who is respected. He guides towards the righteous path whom He wills and diverts away from it whom He wills. He grants His special closeness to whomsoever He wills, leaving whom He wills to be accursed. He grants as He wills to whomsoever He wills, and seizes as He wills, and whomsoever He wills. All which He does or will do is adl or insaf, meaning it is fair and just, because He is free from oppressing. He is the most supreme, the most magnificent. He encircles everything and there is nothing that encircles him, except this is not in a physical sense. To cause benefit and to give loss is in his divine control. He helps the oppressed and brings the oppressors to justice. Nothing happens without his divine will. He is blessed. Astaghfirullah. He is pleased with the good and displeased with the bad. It is his divine mercy that he does not command us to do things which are not within our reach. It is not compulsory upon Allah. It is not an obligation upon Allah to reward or punish his servants, or to pity them, or do what is best for them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the supreme Lord, the supreme Rabb. He does as he wills and commands whatever he wills. He has promised paradise, Jannah, to the believers, and through his justice he has promised Jahannam, hell, to the disbelievers, to the unbelievers. His promises never changed. He has promised that with the exception of kufr, with disbelief, he will forgive all major and minor sins, whichever he wills. Whether we realize it or not, there are countless wisdoms in his every doing. All his doings are free from any motive, because a motive is always inspired by a desire for some kind of benefit. And Allah is free from desire because he does not need any benefit from creation. His doings do not depend on any justification or cause. Through his wisdom, he has made one thing for the means of another. He has created eyes for seeing, ears to hear, fire to burn, and water to quench thirst. And if he wills, eyes may hear, ears may see, fire may quench thirst, and water may burn. If he does not will, then one may have 1,000 eyes and still not be able to see a mountain in bright daylight. And if he does not will, then there may be 1,000,000 fires raging, but even a single blade of grass will not be tarnished. This last point is important because it tells us that we don't believe in cause and effect relationships. We believe in that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who causes and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who creates the effect. That the true causer is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for he is the one who creates the causes and effects. And lastly, in regards to his pleasure and displeasure, earning his pleasure, his mercy is with obedience to him, and displeasure, his wrath, is with disobedience to him. The manifestations of which show in creation. This is what he means when in regards to his statement on his mercy. His names refer to the qualities of his attributes, and they have always existed as well, meaning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was always merciful before he created anything to be merciful towards. That he was always a creator before he created anything. And this ends the section regarding the beliefs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Next lesson we will discuss Nabuwat, the beliefs regarding the prophets. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.